My, do we have some things to talk about in this one. Woo! What a day yesterday was, huh? Let's do it. Episode 624, we will dive into all of it. Welcome to the podcast. I'm your host, RJ Carbone. You are listening to BD4, where there's no better way to get your Yankees and Knicks analysis. We also do MMA. Yanks every series, Knicks every game, MMA on occasion. Let's get to it.
Anthony for three. That one goes down, and the game is tied.
I'd like to take this chance to apologize to absolutely nobody.
The Yankees are champions of baseball.
Shaking and baking right here on the neophyte.
Trying to close the show. She was doing a great job of feeding. That is over.
Don't you regret not coming to the Knicks? Don't you regret not coming to the Knicks?
Game over. World Series over. Yankees win. The Yankees win.
Okay, well, we certainly have some talking points to go over in this show. We're very briefly going to talk about the actual game because this was another one of those, what I call purgatory games, kind of like the first game against Indiana, where nobody really cares. Nobody's going to look back at this game because nobody played. My God, did nobody play. But we'll talk about that for a couple seconds. And then we're really going to dive into, in this episode, the trade deadline. Leon Rose won the trade deadline. The Knicks may have lost the game, but Leon definitely won. I think I'm going to title that the episode. The Knicks lose, Leon wins. But let's talk. The Knicks do not lose 113-100. I don't know what that is. That's a mistake there. They lost 122-108 to the Mavs last night at Madison Square Garden. I was actually at the game. Of course, I go to the Garden, once every fucking 7 years? Like, I barely get to go. And one time I get to go is the one punt game that they have while they're good. Insane. It was a tough one. First half, back and forth a little bit. Josh Hart had a rough first quarter. The Knicks were kind of getting hurt on the offensive glass in the first, quarter. They were allowing a lot of second chance points for the Mavericks. Dallas was ahead on the board 16-9 early in the second quarter. The Knicks going to the half down 11 points. Second half, you had the Nova duo without Brunson getting some big baskets in the third quarter. And then Precious and Deuce McBride had a couple of nice moments in the second half. Deuce obviously throwing down the poster dunk on Max. That was nice to see. The Garden went wild when that happened. That was fun. Fourth quarter comes. Luka Doncic gets red hot. He and Josh Hart kind of going back and forth on threes. Hart's knocking a few down. Luka keeps knocking them down. The Knicks stayed in it, but Luka was just way too much in the end, and he puts the game away with the perfect fourth quarter. Don't think he missed a shot. The Knicks lose a game they expected to lose. Everybody expected this one to be tough. Their entire rotation is fucking injured, outside of Dante DiVincenzo and Josh Hart. That's just a fact. But to be able to stay in this game like they did, I mean, the Knicks, their lack of quit is remarkable, and we know this. We know they're going to be in every single game until the 48th minute, And I was leaving the building. I left like an idiot. I guess I almost look like an idiot. But yeah, like 3-4 minutes left. We leave the Garden. We're leaving the building, going down the escalator, and I'm checking my phone, and it's like, oh shit, the Knicks pulled this game to within 8. And there's still 3 minutes and change remaining. And I'm like, fuck, am I really going to, at that point, I'm like, they better lose. And that was as close as they got. They ended up losing 122-108. I guess Luka did some more magic in the final minutes there, but okay, whatever. That's a loss that nobody expected the Knicks to even be in that game, and they were. So cool. I guess we're handing out awards real briefly. Dante DiVincenzo, the first game ball. The first game ball going to Dante. Dude, we've talked about him so much and how exceptional he's been for a guy who's on a mid-level exception contract. I can't believe Golden State gave this guy up. Now look at them. Like, Dante would have fit in perfectly next to Steph. Now he's got a declining Klay Thompson, and the Knicks have their version of prime Klay Thompson and this kid. I just can't believe this guy. I mean, I know the Golden State Warriors they're trying to stay under that second tax apron, so they really had no choice, but the dude just balls. And he gets better as his role increases, right? Early on in the season, Dante DiVincenzo's role was to come off the bench. And he did an adequate job. He was fine. He gets promoted to the starting role to fill in for Grimes, and he does a great job. Now, with the Randall injury, he's now looked at as the number 2 option, and he's done an elite job. Since the Julius injury, the last 6 games for Dante DiVincenzo, the kid is averaging, and these are rounded up, 29 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals, and a block on 47% shooting from the field, 42% on threes on 13 attempts per game, on an 80% free throw clip. Unbelievable. The fact that his usage has gone up, but he's still remained just as productive and efficient. And he's scoring the ball in many different ways now. It's not just catch and shoot. He can play on the ball. He can play off the ball. He's now attacking closeouts, finishing at the basket with a floater. He's flashing a little bit of a layup package. That was an issue early in the season where he had historically he's had poor touch at the basket. He's attacking now. And he looks very good, man. And I'm just happy to have the best role player contract in the NBA in Dante DiVincenzo. So that's his 10th game ball of the season. He's getting up there now. And then off the bench, this was hard, right? I mean, I didn't even make a graphic because why? But hey, I'm going to throw it to Jacob Toppin. He'll get his first game ball of the season. Also in his first real minutes of the season with a whopping 11. I'm sure his brother Obi will be proud of that. Just out of process of elimination. Yeah, like he didn't give you much in his minutes. He didn't show much of an offensive package. He was definitely scored on a little bit, but I thought the defense looked okay. Like he held his own against Luka. Luka's footwork is just incredible. He had a nice closeout to Jones, weak side, but Jones did make the shot. I don't know. I mean, I wasn't going to give it to anybody else. I wasn't going to give it to a winded Taj Gibson, who's back, by the way. He's back on another 10-day. And I wasn't going to go Charlie Brown. Like Charlie Brown Jr., what did he do last night? So I guess Jacob Toppin gets it at a process of elimination. Anyways, that was the Knicks-Mavs game from last night. Who gives a shit? Of course, I have to go to that one, but we live with it. Let's talk about what we all want to talk about. The Knicks completed their roster yesterday. They did the move. They did the move that everybody was expecting them to make at some point after the OG trade, and they sent Quentin Grimes, Malachi Flynn, Ryan Arcidiacono, Evan Fournier's salary, and 2 second-round picks to Detroit. And in return, they are getting Bojan Bogdanovic, and Alec Burks is reuniting with his former team, with his former coach. So that was the deal that went down yesterday, and my first reaction is the same reaction that I carry right now. Leon Rose wins once again. I mean, you look at both trades this season. Leon Rose moved 0 firsts in these trades. And both of the second round picks that he moved in this Bogi Burks deal were whatever picks from the Obi deal. They were Met picks. He didn't give up a single first round pick. He moved a player who is a few months away from being extension eligible in Grimes. He moved 3 non-rotational guards in Fournier, Arcidiacono, and Malachi. He opens up 2 slots now on the roster to use. So the Knicks now are $2.5 million below the luxury tax, with plenty of room below the first apron to explore the buyout market. It's not a very enticing buyout list, but whatever. That's good. He's helped them financially. Most importantly, when it comes to the Knicks financials, and you got to credit, I'm sure, Brock Aller, Walt Perrin had a say in this, had a lot to do with these moves the Knicks are making regarding like making the money work and everything. Like Leon Rose and these guys moved 2 $25 million salaries in RJ Barrett and eventually Emmanuel Quickley for OG Anunoby, who's set to make $30 to $40 million in salary. Plus, throw on top of that moving Evan Fournier's $19 million. So the Knicks finally, after all these years, are finally getting value from Fournier's contract. Because Bogi, who they're getting, he's under contract for next season with the $19 million partially guaranteed, which they'll pick up. And you have to imagine the Knicks will be flipping Bogi or trying to flip Bogi in a bigger deal. Does that star shake loose between, summertime and February 2025? So that's huge, man. Right? And you get Burks. Like, the main reason I was concerned about the Burks rumors and didn't like what I was hearing was because primarily Burks isn't tradable salary, right? That's why initially when you heard the report, it was like just Grimes and a couple picks for Burks. You were like, what the hell? Because with Burks, you can't really move him as salary filler. You would have to sign and trade, and even then, it's still not a ton of money. But now, bringing in Bogi, the Knicks have maintained that salary slot with Fournier going out, Bogi coming in. So when the Knicks do go after their second star, and they will, they now have the asset to use to make the money work. And that's the most important thing for me, is getting salary filler. And people need to prep for this. I'm sorry. Like, it's the modern NBA. You do need firepower. You do need 2 superstars at the head, unless one of your 2 guys is a top 2 player in basketball at worst. So whether it's Donovan Mitchell or, I don't know, Devin Booker, Paul George, a disgruntled Embiid or Giannis, whichever disgruntled superstar shakes loose next, we'll see. The Knicks, you damn well bet, you could bet that the Knicks will be going after those guys. But whenever that guy does shake loose, that's like, everybody should expect it, is what I'm saying. Like, Leon Rose was hired to do that. Okay, so you can like your homegrown players, you can like this team having a togetherness and everybody does this. That's all great. But we have to remember Leon was hired to do this one thing, to get the star. That's why Worldwide West was brought in here. Leon was brought in to get that next move, to get the big superstar move to put next to Brunson, right? To use his draft capital as an asset. All these first-round picks he's saved up. To use the salary that he's brought in. Bogi's $20 million, Mitch's contract potentially. And he's going to do all that to go out and get this next superstar. Hate it, love it. That's today's NBA, and it's going to have to be how it is. You know, the people keep bringing up the 04 Pistons. Like there's a reason we're still talking about that one team. It's 04. There's a reason we're still talking about, because it hasn't happened since. We are in 2024. It's officially 20 years later. It's time to adopt and move on. Relying on the exception to the norm is not a great plan. You're going to need a second star. So that's why I love this deal. You have that asset now in Bogi that you can flip. Now, short term, on the court basketball stuff, of course we love it there too. Of course it's a big move. Right? You go and look at Alec Burks. Now, I'm a little bit curious to see how Burks operates in a playmaker role with the second unit. At the same time, you don't need him playing primary initiator like he did in 2021, 2022, when it got a little bit tough to watch there at the end. He was kind of overused as the playmaker, but you don't need that right now because he didn't have Brunson back then. All you're going to need from Alec Burks to do as the initiator is give you 15 minutes per game in a playoff series, which we'll talk about the playoff rotation in a second. But yeah, like all you need from Burks is you just need someone who can run the second unit and someone who can also play in those Brunson and Randall lineups. Because I think that's why you like Burks, because he can play on ball and he can play off ball, right? He can facilitate pick and roll and shoot when the defense goes under. He's capable of creating his own shot, and he's capable of creating a little bit for others. He's obviously a guy who's super familiar with Tom Thibodeau's system. He's Tibbs' Swiss Army knife for those couple years he was here. And he's still putting up the same numbers that he did with the Knicks a few years back. On even better efficiency. He's averaging 13 points per game, and he's shooting 40% from three, 90% at the free throw line. And he gets there a decent amount. So I'm going to love Alec Burks. Fun dude to watch. He was a good Knick. Sort of a fan favorite. Everybody liked him. Bogi's going to be interesting because he's not a guy who fits Tom Thibodeau's defense grit kind of system, and we'll talk about that. But he's another guy who comes in and he's very capable of creating his own shot because he's this crafty guy who can shoot off the dribble, put the ball on the floor. He's another pick and roll facilitator, especially from the empty side. But he can put the ball on the floor and he can attack closeouts. He can also catch and shoot very effectively. Bogi's a guy with a very quick, clean release. You watch his motion, the ball moves before his body does in catch and shoot. He's a guy who can run off screens, shoot in movement, come off pin downs, DHO offense, etc. Which means he and Ihart are certainly going to play well together. That's a lineup I'd like to see. I'd also like to see him in lineups with Jalen Brunson. That would be something that would be very difficult to switch that because of Bogi's size. He's a guy who punishes a ton of mismatches because he's able to rise up over smaller defenders in the mid-post. And if you trap the screen on a Bogi pick and roll, he's able to beat the double by making the proper read. He's a pretty good passer for a big wing. He's a very efficient scorer who finds the open three-point looks in transition a lot when the defense isn't set. He's one of the top scorers in terms of points per possession, or I think it was points per touch. And on the year, he's averaging 20 points per game. And he's doing it on 47% shooting from the floor, 42% from three, and 52% on twos. Another high-scoring, very efficient wing. So him and Bogi together, that's going to help the Knicks significantly. It's going to alleviate pressure off Brunson. I hope I use that term properly. But yeah, with both of these guys capable pick and roll wings, it allows Brunson to play off ball more in his minutes. It will help open up catch and shoot 3-pointers for Brunson again, which he kind of lost that when Randall went down. Doesn't have the gravity where Brunson feeds it to Randall, relocates, Randall draws 2, kicks to Brunson. So while they both help Brunson minutes-wise, right? Burks can take a little bit. The Knicks can afford to sit Brunson a little longer, and Burks can take over in some minutes now. That helps, but it also helps in that way where Brunson's not going to have to be on the ball for 40 fucking minutes a night anymore. Right? In the shooting aspect, the spacing aspect of it all, Alec Burks and Bojan Bogdanovic are 2 excellent above-the-break 3-point shooters, which means now you don't need to position a Josh Hart 1 pass away from the action anymore where the defense can just help onto Brunson pick and rolls. That's not going to be a problem as much. The Knicks have so much elite shooting now that their half court is going to be spaced out in certain lineups. Dante DiVincenzo is a high-volume, high-efficient 3-point shooter. So is Brunson. So is Bogi. So is Burks. OG Anunoby's more of a corner shooter. He's not a guy who's going to snipe above the breaks. But you got shooters on this roster now. This rotation is going to shoot. The spacing is going to be incredible in certain lineups. If Randall's struggling again in a big playoff game, you have Bogi who could score the ball. If Josh Hart's causing problems in half-court offense, he doesn't have to play 35 minutes because you have Burks. It gives the Knicks some more size. Now, does the defense drop off? The defense will definitely drop off right now with nobody healthy. I think you're going to see some more brutal 122-plus games like you saw last night. But at full strength, I don't know that it's going to drop off a noticeable amount. Yes, you're losing Quentin Grimes, who is your best defender at the point of attack. You're getting a little bit slower, less athletic, a little older, right? And that might not be ideal in a system that requires hard closeouts, a lot of recovering, and a lot of rotating in the back. And the Knicks, their defensive system, they also send a ton of nail help. And Bogi, when he's at the nail, has a tendency to reach in and not get his entire body in front of the penetrator. Bogi is a very below average defensive player overall. He's best in a helper role, but he's still not great there. Alec Burks is not a great defender on lead ball handlers, but I still feel like Burks can maybe hold down his own in like certain one-on-one matchups. You are gaining size defensively. And as great as Quentin Grimes was, his big defensive flaw was guarding up at wing. Quentin Grimes struggled versus more traditional threes. It's part of the reason why he lost his starter role. Offense had a lot to do with that too, but it's also why Tom Thibodeau never trusted Grimes and Dante sharing the court together, because it meant one of them had to guard up. But now you're bringing in Bogi, who can play 3 to 4. You're bringing in Burks, who can defend 1 to 3. So while they're not great defenders, it helps that the Knicks have some size to where they're able to match up a little bit better now with the size that Milwaukee possesses, that Boston possesses. It also gives them a little more switchability in that second unit. And you do have to think that you're bringing in 2 high IQ veterans, right? Bogey's a smart vet. Burks is, again, somebody who's very familiar with Tibbs' defensive scheme. That's going to help. So when they're at full strength, if things get real bad defensively, Tibbs is probably going to pull Bogi for OG anyway. I think late in a playoff game, you're probably going to see Tibbs close with defense anyway, which we might as well get to that now. That leads us to our next little subtopic here. What does this playoff rotation look like? As far as the regular season goes, these two guys are going to be in there, and they're going to be playing 30-plus minutes a night. Like, with the injuries we've got, knowing Tom Thibodeau, that's pretty much a guarantee that Bogi and Burks are going to get 30 minutes. At least Bogi. In the playoffs, if the Knicks are healthy by then, Tibbs is probably running 8.5. Right, the first unit I think is pretty obvious. You're going to go Brunson, DiVincenzo, Anunoby, Randall, Hartenstein. Second unit, Burks, Hart, Bogi, and Mitch Robinson. So that's 9, but I'm sure it's going to be like an 8.5, right? I'm unsure of who the 8.5 man's going to be. Now, some nights I'm sure, because Brunson's going to get his 40 minutes a game in a playoff series, right? So I'm sure that some nights Burks is going to be your 8.5 man. Maybe on other nights it's going to be Bogi that gets the short end, right? If his defense isn't cutting it, he maybe sits down, down the stretch of a game. Maybe they take it easy with Mitch. Mitch could very well be the next Knick to go this summer. So maybe they don't want him getting hurt and tanking that value. I mean, if Leon Rose and these guys don't value their own picks, which they've shown you they don't, then they certainly don't care about moving picks from the previous regime. So I think that's, you could see Mitch sit. Will Josh Hart finally be the one to get lesser minutes? That's the ideal candidate right there, in my opinion. Like, I don't think in a playoff series you can justify playing Hart big-time minutes like you're doing right now. After you saw what happened in the second round last year, and really what you're seeing since then, I don't know that you could justify playing him big minutes anymore in a playoff series, especially with the insurance that we now have when this team's at full strength. You have to think Dante is going to be getting leaned on for 35 plus. You already know OG Anunoby is going to get his 40. Bogi, if he shoots like he does, he might be getting more minutes. And I could see Burks getting some of those minutes too with how much Tibbs loves him. I mean, he was their closer. Your depth pieces now become, in a playoff series, Deuce McBride, Jericho Sims, Precious Achiuwa. Occasionally those guys will play if they're needed for rebounding, maybe some defense, extra shooting, or God forbid another fucking injury. But for the most part, they're not going to play. So this trade definitely deepens their roster a fuck ton to where maybe he does go the full 9 and he plays all of them decent minutes. The Knicks are deep as hell. Like, they have now, on this roster, they've got plenty of second unit players who could start on a whole lot of teams. I do still think, though, come playoff time, crunch time minutes, tight games, he's going to lean into his starters. That's the old reliable for Tom Thibodeau. So I think it's going to be an 8.5. But as of now, we're not even there yet. We got to get through the rest of the regular season, right? It's so nice, though, to now have some size at wing, some front court insurance for Brunson, right? Not only that, but it's legitimate starting caliber talent that Leon just stole away from Detroit. Bogdanovich is a 20 points per game scorer. He could very well likely be starting at wing tomorrow night. I would expect it. Alec Burks is a solid double-figure scorer, very capable of dropping 20 any night. You didn't need Quickly's replacement. What you needed was the position that Quickly played to be filled. And both of these guys can ball handle. They can snipe. If the defense goes under, they can shoot. If they go over, they can create their own shot, get to the basket. They're also two guys with clutch genes. I mentioned that Burks is their fourth quarter guy. Bogi has a pretty good postseason resume. So I'm very curious to see the different lineup combinations that Tibbs can get creative with. You know, the amount of shooting that you can put out there at once. Play small, go all offense with all these shooters out there. The size that he can lean on. It's going to be really cool to see. So my concern is not as much about the regular season anymore. I think this trade completely calmed my nerves there. As long as Brunson gets back soon. And, you know, like tomorrow will be nice because they really do need him. But like before this trade, with all the injuries that were happening, like I had the Knicks finishing 6th place at best. Maybe even dropping out of a playoff slot. At the rate the injuries were happening to just go to the rest of the season like that. Especially if they were to acquire like a Brown and that'd be it. Or a Burks and that'd be it. But after this trade, getting Bogi, getting Burks, well, I think the chances of grabbing a home court seed might be difficult now. So long as Randall and OG come back during their reevaluation periods, which is both of them with plenty of time remaining in the regular season, I think the Knicks have a chance to still get a 4 or 5 seed. 5 seed kind of scares me because there's a good chance that you now have to face Boston. Do you advance past the first round? But at this point, just win. Like, you can't fuck around and get picky right now. Just win. And my hope is that the Knicks are healthy in time, not just for the playoffs, but ideally before the postseason to adjust, get their feet wet, and gel with each other. So hopefully it is just 3 weeks for OG. Hopefully it is just an extra week for Randall. I guess from now to, what was the second reevaluation? Was that a week ago? So an extra 2 more weeks for Randall. But I think if that's the case and everybody's back when they're supposed to be back, then yeah, they still have very much a chance to make an Eastern Conference Finals run at the least. I think that's the potential they have right now. But yeah, I mean, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't concerned about the injuries. Less than I was 24 hours ago. Or maybe a little more than that now, but like, let's go through it again because every day we get these new fucking updates. Right? OG Anunoby is now going to be out for 3 weeks with the surgery news that came yesterday when he had surgery in the morning. That's a real shocker there. I think everybody with brain cells called that one. I had people on Twitter going after me for saying, oh, I'm a little concerned here about the day-to-day thing. Well, who was right? But it could have been worse. It could have been a lot worse. And there's, a great chance that 3 weeks is all it is. From what you're hearing about this injury, it seems like it's a one-and-done thing. He'll be back out there. And with the All-Star break coming up, he's only going to miss in total, 8-ish games? 7 now? So that's huge. OG Anunoby is the X factor. He is, and don't kill me because I'm not going where you might think I'm going with this. He's Carlos Rodon, right? Not obviously he's better. Yes. He's Carlos Rodon where he is going to depict the rest of the season. Where the playoffs will depend on OG Anunoby's health. Just like the Yankees with Rodon's health. OG Anunoby is that. He's the X factor. Where he goes, the Knicks go. So, I still have hope that Randall is going to be able to fight through. I have some concerns, like how's that shoulder going to hold up in a playoff series, especially if the Heat find a way to match up with the Knicks. You know they're going to be tugging at that thing because they're a dirty team. Wish the Knicks would play dirty back sometimes. But, he's going to be reevaluated after All-Star break. And if he's good, then he's cleared to play, and we're good there. So if they can get Randall before March, it's a massive win for me. I had him coming back in March. Mitch gets back on the court in terms of resuming basketball activities after the All-Star break. That's a plus, so let's hope there's no setback there. And he's important now. Mitch becomes very important because now you have to worry about Isaiah Hartenstein's Achilles. That's, again, not a word I like hearing. I saw him limping at the end of the first half. yesterday. And as soon as I saw that, I knew he was, if not done for the game, something was going to come out after the game. And now he's out for at least tomorrow night. How long is he going to be out? Well, that's a question. Is this something he's going to have to manage the rest of the season? Maintain things? Is it something that could end his season if he falls and lands badly? Right? He's already fell a few times. I get concerned. Like, I don't want the other shoe to drop and someday we wake up and we see this report that he's getting surgery. But all in all, I hope and I pray that the odds land in our favor where everybody gets healthy at once and they're all healthy in time to where they're not just jumping straight into a 7-game series against the Indiana Pacers and, they have to play 40 minutes a night all of a sudden. I just hope it goes as planned. And that's where I get concerned. It's like it feels a little too good to be true. Feels a little Yankees-ish, Yankees-like. But we'll see. Again, this move that Leon Rose and the Knicks front office made yesterday, goddamn, did it calm me down a little bit. Because if they were to do something minor or nothing at all, or something I didn't like a Bruce Brown, or I would have been like, this team's a 6 seed at best. I really wasn't feeling it. But now that they made this move, I think this team could very well stay in that 4 spot. Very well. So, I think that's it. We're going to head to our break. And when we return in a few minutes, we're going to get into our trivia to wrap this thing up. Stay with us here on BD4, episode 624. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
We appreciate you sticking around and listening so far. When you have a chance, be sure to open YouTube to subscribe, like, and comment. And if you're already watching on YouTube, be sure to head over to Apple Podcasts and give us a 5-star review. We appreciate your feedback and are always looking to improve. Now, with that all said, let's get you back to the show. You can also find us on social media. If you'd like, you can follow BD4 on Facebook, and we're at BD4Pod on both Instagram and Twitter. We appreciate you helping us grow more and more every day. Let's get back to it. If you have time in the day or maybe just prefer old-fashioned reading over listening, then you can always follow along and subscribe to BD4 Blog by going to BD4blog.com. We're not on there as often, but when we do post, it's just as entertaining, opinionated, and passionate as we are on this podcast. Thank you so much. And let's keep on with the show.
Studio 69 Productions is a podcast production agency created by Leo Rodriguez to allow content creators to market their podcast. It's an online platform that will market your podcast or any other project that you're working on. Get in touch with Leo Rodriguez from Studio 69 Productions. You can find Studio 69 Productions on Instagram at Studio69NJ. Studio 69 Productions, where dreams are heard and born. I don't know if it's true, but I just saw that they're going to be announcing the UFC 300 main event as a Super Bowl commercial on Sunday. I don't know how I feel about that. It better be a damn good one. Maybe it's Izzy. Maybe it's fucking Connor. Who knows at this point? All right. Welcome back to the show. Welcome. Yeah, I mean, those are my thoughts. Let's wrap this up with our trivia, and I think we'll keep it here 40 minutes. I don't think we need to go further. Just hit the points that we need to hit, and I think that's all I have. If you guys have any questions in the comments, be sure to comment on YouTube. If you're listening to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, I do appreciate that. Don't forget, though, to give us a 5-star rating and leave us a review. Thank you so much. With that said, let's wrap this up with our trivia. All right. Episode 624, our trivia question of the day. Open-ended one. We very rarely do open-ended questions and go away from actual trivia, but I feel like this is an appropriate question for this episode. How confident are you in the 2024 New York Knicks at making an Eastern Conference Finals run? All right. Maybe you're more confident. Maybe you're in that finals boat. I'm trying to temper. I always like to temper, but I definitely think they're a dark horse candidate. So how confident are you in the 2024 New York Knicks making an Eastern Conference Finals run? Let me know the answer wherever you can reach me. If you get the answer correct, I'll give you a shout out in the next episode in front of all 2 of our followers, all 2 of our listeners. And maybe you're watching on YouTube. Subscribe if you are. That's it. I appreciate it. We'll end this one here. Episode 624 of the podcast. Thanks for tuning in to BD4. I'm your host, RJ. And those are my thoughts on the trade. Hope you all enjoy this trade too, because it's a good move for the Knicks. And here's to a positive future for this team. Later. This episode was brought to you by Anchor.
Hey there! If you stayed the entire way through, we thank you immensely for it. We hope you enjoyed this podcast and that you come back for the next episode real soon. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, download these episodes, and share them with your friends as well. BD4 is a 5-star podcast simply because of you, and we'd like to keep it that way. Have a wonderful day. Go Yankees, and go Knicks!